Hey guys, this is Ramesh. Welcome to my channel, Stopping the World, and I hope you're all doing well wherever you are. So, today I wanted to talk about the important subject of education, especially formal education that we decide to impart to our kids. Now, I'm sure most of us would have hated going to school as kids, doing the homework, sitting for exams, preparing, cramming all that information into our heads, which we probably never use in our lives again. I mean, who remembers the date on which Babur came to India, or who remembers what surds are in mathematics? I mean, no doubt some of these topics are really important for people who are in that career, but a majority of the information that we have been asked to cram into our heads, that we invest so much of our time and energy into collecting, actually is never ever used, except for that brief period where we sit for an exam and get marks. So there is this huge pressure on students, huge pressure on parents, and there's all these universities and people basically cropping up as businesses making money out of it. So do we really need a formal education system for our kids? Isn't their time better utilized learning things they actually need, learning things they'll actually use in their lives, and spend more time on their all-round development, emotional development, and so many other things? Arts, creativity, which a lot of us, especially in India, lack. So there is this phenomenon of homeschooling that's kind of cropping up all over the world, and now especially even in India. It's not as widespread as it perhaps should be, but there are families and people who are taking this route. And today I'm actually chatting with a gentleman, Mr. Abhijit Roy, who's joined us to talk about his experience, who went through this with his own kids. So Abhijit, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you're doing well.
Hi Ramesh, thank you for having me. Yeah, we are doing great, and I hope things are good on your side also.
Yes, this is fantastic. So, first of all, what exactly is homeschooling? Is it the same as work from home, in the sense people don't go to office, or kids don't go to school, but they still follow some kind of set curriculum like ICSE or CBSE or state curriculum or whatever from home? Or is it just that they don't do anything at all that is related to school?
Yeah, so in general, if you want to put things into perspective from the point of view of giving it a definition, I can first talk about what it is not. So homeschooling or unschooling or world schooling or road schooling, there are many names for the set of people the group in which we fall into. And the more important thing than what we are doing is what we are not doing. And that is that what we all have in common is that our children are not going to any schools
Right.
or institutes or organizations that impart education, which over a period of time has become a mode of business.
Right.
So we are not against education. We are not against any systems. We are not. It's just that we realized over a period of time that we just didn't need it. We felt that we didn't need that aspect of our children's upbringing,
Right.
where they needed to go to an organization, an institute, to learn from. So. Our approach to education is learn by doing, and we felt that everything that we needed to learn by doing we could do on our own, and we didn't need to outsource our children to other people for their, like you said, the term you used was overall growth.
Right.
So that's what homeschooling is not. Is that we don't send our children to school. Now, when it comes to what we do, it depends on every single family. So each family does something different depending on the aptitude and the environment in which the child is growing. So broadly, they are divided into two sections. Of course, as people who are away from the system, we don't really believe in any kind of categorization and all that. But for understanding sake, you can say that there are parents, there are families in which children are not going to school, but are still following age-appropriate learning based on curriculums, which parents can get a hand on, parents can get a hold of from online sources.
Right.
Or
So
they can
basically, sorry to interrupt you there. So basically, you're saying there are all kinds of no schooling or homeschooling possible, where some people just don't send their kids to school, but have some kind of formal structure in which they follow their kids.
Some
thing.
follow the exact same structure of the schools
Right.
at home.
Right.
And some follow some of it, may not follow some of it, and then there are some who don't follow any structure.
So when you say some follow the structure but just at home, do they then do the kids then sit for exams somehow?
Yeah. There is a concept of open schooling,
Right.
where as such, from what my understanding is, because I have not done much research on education in children. Since we didn't do much research for our children, there are organizations like Indian government itself has an organization called NIOS, that is National Institute of Open Schooling, where children can appear for 10th board exams onwards.
Without ever going to school?
Without ever going to school, yeah. They have to appear for an entrance exam, and then they become, if they are eligible to appear for the exam, then they can purchase their curriculum from the organization and study it and appear for formal tests and examinations through an open schooling system.
Right.
So,
and would you know if these tests still cover the same subjects and same questions that a normal
Absolutely.
kid would have gone through? So
yeah,
that means
it's
that
the
for
equivalent.
right. So for these parents, they would have had to cover all this at home anyway. You're just not
Anyway,
going to
from
school in
childhood,
future.
yeah.
Right. So basically, I guess this will still not solve our problem where we brought up this issue of people cramming into head, information into kids' heads that they don't need. But in your case, in your case, it's different, right? It's none of this. In your case,
yes and no, because see what happens is when you work with an open schooling environment, age-appropriate learning is not mandatory. I mean, you can appear for an NIOS exam when you are 42 also.
Right.
So you don't have to appear for a 12th exam when you are 17, or you don't have to appear. So age is not a problem there. So they can do it at their leisure. Okay. But to get the certificate, you have to pass exams.
Right.
So that condition is there.
So which category of parenting do you fall into? Do you fall into this structure? But I understand that you.
Yeah, we
don't follow anything.
We are what you would in generally people would call unschoolers.
Okay.
So our children have never gone to any school. They have not gone to any preschool. They have not gone to any institute. No classes. Our philosophy is learn by doing, and we in our particular case, we don't follow academics at all. The only thing we use books for is stories. We nothing more than that. It started with bedtime stories and it has stayed bedtime stories, or it has evolved into other stories. Our children only access books when they want to read stories, and they don't access books to get information from, or something to. Of course, it can be argued that you can learn a lot from stories. So there is no agenda, there is no purpose behind doing anything. Just read stories, enjoy them. If you take away something, great. If you don't take away something, also great. So there is nothing to be achieved. There is no age appropriate learning curve. There is no you can learn whatever whenever. And we in our case our children are self-directed also. So we do not engage in trying to get them to do something just because we feel that it's great for them. I mean, there are many things that we feel we would love for them to do, and but we don't direct them. We let them come across whatever they come across, and if they want to explore it, we facilitate it.
Okay, so and you have how many children?
I have two. I have an elder daughter who is 10 years old. Her name is Arohi. And I have a younger son who's 4 years old. His name is Jai.
Right. And you are going through this approach with both of them?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So even your daughter, who's 10 years old, has never been to a school, not even a preschool, like
No,
not through the
no,
system at all.
no institutes at all. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this is very like to a normal, like I'm not a parent myself, I never had kids, but speaking on behalf of people out there who are watching, this is like the concept of homeschooling we spoke of before. That I understand, that it's still from home, but still is somewhat in the system.
Yeah, yeah.
But something like this is so radical and mind-boggling that most Indian parents will not have the guts to do this. So basically, just let them learn naturally on a need-to basis, whatever comes across. So
Yeah.
how did this personal journey start for you? Like, what is your background? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you could blame it on our background. My wife and I, we are both from the media and entertainment industry. So the thing that we experienced ourselves was that everything that we learned in our academic education, we never really um, directly use that in a profession in any way or form. I mean, of course, we learned how to read and write in school, but that my daughter does that, did that on her own. She didn't have to go to school to do that. So main question that we faced was that do we really need to do something to do something else? Our children, they need to go to a school to learn life skills? And we realized that we didn't have to do that very early on. But then that was not the reason why our children didn't go to school. The main reason our children didn't go to school is because as parents, Snehal and I, my wife Snehal and I, we wanted to spend more time with them. And that's pretty much the only reason that, I mean, we basically sat down and we discussed what is it that breaks a family, and our conclusion, and this is just our personal opinion, and we are not up for debating, is that, as a family, the main two things that we realized breaks a family is that parents go for jobs and children go to school. And these are the two factors which keep family members from spending time together.
Right.
So when the moment ROE was born, the first decision we took was that we both decided not to work. So that particular decision, of course, led us on a path which was very different from what we were doing before.
So that's obviously 10, 11 years ago, since your daughter was 10 years old.
Yeah, it was 2010, yeah.
So you haven't worked, both of you haven't worked in a regular job for 10 years.
We have not worked on any job for 10 years.
So there's no with a regular source of income.
I mean, see, it's not that we don't have income. We do have income, but the kind of income, I mean, we can explore that a little later. The kind of income we have is not the regular one. I mean, we don't get paid salaries or, commissions or raises and, all that income business we don't have. We have a different way by which we sustain ourselves. And but it's not through exchange of money versus as opposed to work.
Right.
So it's not service versus money kind of exchange.
And
so we took that decision because we felt that parents going to work is something that doesn't keep the family together. And then eventually we took the decision that the second factor was children going to school and spending more than half of their day there. So we decided that we didn't want to do that also, so that we could, the three of us at that point of time could spend 24 hours, 7 days a week together. So that was the prime motivation. There was no other thing. Everything that followed was a consequence and byproduct of that one decision. Yeah.
Right. And was there at any point at all any doubts or any hesitation? Like, did you realize oh my God, maybe they're missing out on, I don't know, something else that we're not able to teach, or not?
Absolutely.
How did you stick to this? Because it is quite gutsy to go through for such a long time.
See, it is like saying that we expect our children to learn everything in this world, and which is not practical. So when this question came across that, oh, my child is missing out on this, oh, my child is missing out on that, we realized that they'll miss out on 100,000 things, but are they happy in the space that they are not missing out on? So we just didn't worry about what they're missing out on, and we focused our energies on what they were actually being part of. So we basically internalize rather than externalize. Usually people look at other people's children and, oh, that guy's child is going for swimming classes, so I should send my child also. That guy's child is going for dance classes, so we always keep looking at what other people are doing to decide what our children should be doing. And we basically just close that window off, and we looked at what was it that our child wanted to do, and we just kept facilitating that. So our focus was entirely on what the child wanted to do and not what others were doing.
Right. So this I see, like, knowing typical Indian parenting. So this is also a radical shift in the sense that you're not constantly telling the kid that do this, be like this, don't do this.
Yeah.
You're sort of trusting her or him to take their own decisions and follow their own heart, as it were, and then you're just guiding them.
Yeah, absolutely. And no. So the last part I will disagree with. We don't guide them.
Right.
We let them take the decision of what they want to do, and we let them guide themselves.
So how does this how does this learning pattern happen? Like, for example, in a systematized curriculum, you decide, okay, today we're going to do arithmetic, today we're going to do this. So if they're learning on their own, they could just be on one subject for 1 year, or maybe try different things.
Absolutely. Again, I will correct the second half of your statement. The learning pattern doesn't happen, just the learning happens. So there's no pattern to it. And if there is a pattern, it is the child who will decide what kind of pattern it is. We don't decide what kind of pattern the child is going to follow. So it is entirely the child's decision what they want to do, and we just don't interfere in it. So one of the things that I've noticed, this question brings up a lot, is that when you mentioned that do we trust our children to be able to take such decisions on their own, and that is where the biggest road bump is, that are we able to bring ourselves to trust our children to be able to take their own decisions,
right.
And that is completely rooted in the idea that we believe that our children are not capable of doing it, and that's why we feel that they need help in doing such things.
Right.
And this is where we feel that we didn't want to go on that path. I will not say that which one is right or wrong. It's just that we felt that we didn't want to go on that path. Till the child comes and tells us that, okay, I'm not able to decide what I want to do. Can you help me with that? And in that case also, we usually retort back by saying that you're smart enough to figure it out.
Right.
Why don't you try it? And if they completely give up, is when we'll be like, okay, so maybe we can do this together, maybe we can do that together. And then again, the idea would be to do it together and not just inform them that, okay, maybe you can go and do this, and I will see what you've done tomorrow. It's not that. So whenever the child reaches a point where they are, we have to realize that they are actually trying to grab your attention,
right.
rather than not knowing what to do.
Right.
And we have to just facilitate their I'm losing a word here. Their interest in grabbing your
natural
attention.
curiosity.
Yeah. So at that moment, they don't want to do anything but grab your attention. And then we pursue it from that point of view. We don't pursue it that, oh, my child is not able to do something, so that child is coming to me. We just look at it, oh, now the child wants my attention, and that is why he or she is coming to me, and then the only right thing to do is pay your attention, and it doesn't matter what you do together.
Right. So what would be interesting to look at is, since you yourself have had a formal education, right, and
yes.
you probably see other kids in your circle of friends or
yes.
social life who go through this. So I know that comparison is wrong. Of course, we shouldn't be comparing, and you're just looking at what is good for your own children and yourself.
Yeah.
But then, in a way, since it's hard not to raise this question, so how would you, for example, if you look at your daughter at this stage, the things she knows, the skills she has picked up, would you say it's on par or equivalent or even better or than as a person who has gone to school, the same age?
Yeah, so the answer would be none of the above. Sorry about that, because the way we look at it is not whether she's on par with other kids, because she's not. And there are two cases in that case. There are some things that she's not as good as the kids her age, and there are some things that she's way beyond her age. So we don't focus on any one thing. We don't focus on whether she is at par with other kids below them or above them.
Right.
We just focus on whether she is a healthy living being. That's all. And it doesn't matter to us if there are some things. Like, I'll give a very simple example. What would you think would be an appropriate age for a child to learn how to ride a cycle?
Well, I mean, I guess that depends. Maybe 5 years to begin riding.
My daughter started learning how to ride a cycle when she was 9 years old.
Okay.
How long do you think it would take a child to learn to ride a cycle?
How long?
Yeah.
Maybe a few months.
Yeah. My daughter learned it in half a day. You
Right.
get my point?
Right.
So when she got interested in learning how to ride a cycle, she picked up a cycle and started learning it.
Right.
And as every other parent in the world, I grabbed the cycle from the back and I started running with her.
Right.
And within half a day, she picked it up.
So it's more like things happen naturally, they unfold on a need-to basis.
They unfold naturally, yeah. And you have to, but the thing is that as a parent, you have to be present when your help is required. Okay, so it's to facilitate.
Right.
And I never went up to her and said, okay, now you're 9 years old, maybe you should learn how to ride a cycle.
Right. So I guess
we never proposed it, yeah.
Sorry. So no, I guess it's an important point you make, because your presence, because it's not enough to just not send kids to school.
Yeah.
What are you filling that vacuum with?
Yes. Yeah.
So
it does create a vacuum.
It's synergistic. So it both have to be together. The parent has to be at home if the kid is always learning at home.
Yeah.
That's
so this is obviously not doable for everybody, because you have to live in the real world. And
right.
so I mean, in Snehal and my case, people we get pointed out saying that you guys are very lucky that both of you are able to be at home and also sustain yourself. But that is not the case. That luck factor happened because of the decision we took. And there are a lot of people who are not able to take that decision for whatever reason. And I absolutely, I can empathize with it, nothing more than that, because I have no understanding of what families are going through. And but if you don't want to send your child to school, at least one of the parents, I believe, at least, and I'm not saying that's the best case scenario, at least one of the parents should be with the child 24/7. That's my opinion, of course.
Right. And what about social situations? Like if a child goes to school, obviously they'll interact with other children on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Take part in activities and obviously learn from each other and sports and stuff like that. So how does that work out?
Yeah, so basically the condition that you are describing here is a child being provided with automatic friends, and you are bunched up in a room full of 40 kids, and then you are required to automatically pick some of them to become your friends and some of them your rivals and whatnot. So this is the situation in which our children are not put in. And the end result that happened to us, and I'm not speaking of this in general, I'm just speaking from what specifically happened to us, is that because Arohi, my daughter, was never provided automatic friends, she actually started hunting for friends. Because as human beings, we are not meant to live in isolation.
Right.
We are social creatures, and if we don't get social interaction automatically, our natural instinct is to start hunting for social interaction. And that is what happens with children as much as it happens to grown-ups. I mean, there has to be a very specific mindset where somebody wants to isolate themselves. But in general, we are a natural outlook is towards socializing, interacting, getting attention, paying attention. So what ended up happening is that Arohi actually became very good at hunting for friends.
Right.
So that's how she makes friends, and some of them stick around, some of them don't. And that also liberated her from, this is our belief, that it liberated her from just having friends her own age.
Right. But
so
is
she
this,
has friends, yeah.
So sorry, just interrupt you. So is that, I don't know if this is the right word to use, but imagine, so obviously she'd meet other kids, say in a park or a playground or something with other parents around. Absolutely. So when everybody exchanges information, and and your daughter, or you say that, oh, she doesn't, like, people naturally say, oh, my daughter studies here, she's in 5th standard, this, that, and then you say, my daughter doesn't go to school, has never been to one. Do you think you find yourself, or your daughter finds herself in a strange position? Is it at all kind of stigmatized in any way?
No, that entirely depends on what kind of people you come across.
Right.
You come across people who stigmatize you, and then you come across people who don't stigmatize you.
But that hasn't been a problem for you.
If it has been a problem, we have completely ignored it, and if it has not been a problem, we embrace it.
Right.
Because we are on a path where we are frowned upon, we are treated like outcasts, and that's not something that we are facing new anywhere. And we travel a lot, so we go to very many different places, and we don't just travel as tourism. We actually travel and go to places and stay wherever we go for a certain duration of time.
Right.
It might be for the rest of our lives, it might be for a certain. So till now we have not grown roots anywhere.
Right.
But the moment people realize that we are not doing what they are doing, we do get differently treated. And there are some people who find it amazing and they embrace us. And we count our blessings, and we go on with that. But yeah, we do get treated differently. That there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Right.
But then again, those are the things, the challenges you face in your lives are the ones that make you stronger.
True.
So
True.
that's exactly.
I mean, I guess, of course, it's not the same, but you find challenges anyway, even in the other path where students do go to school.
Absolutely.
So, and what about situations where the child needs access to technical stuff or equipment or special material which she would have had access to in a school or a library? For example, let's say she gets interested in the stars and in the school, or say in microorganisms. Say in a school or a library, there would be, say, a microscope or a telescope or a curriculum which explains what it is.
Yes.
So when you I wouldn't say deprive, but when they don't have access to such materials, how would they go about learning?
Well, as of now, we have not found any depravity, because there are many other places other than schools which have such facilities. So yeah, there are science labs around. There are medical labs around where our children can go and get exposed to these things. And if there is no place other than that, then we procure the device at home.
Okay. Have you ever bought anything like this? Or?
Till date, no, because we always found some place where it was open for children to go and explore.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a very important point I need to touch upon, because the whole point of, as you know, formal education, at least in an Indian context, is getting a degree.
Yeah.
So people rarely worry about what the child is actually learning.
Yeah.
So a lot of focus is on getting that piece of paper so that they can move on to the next university or then higher education or a job. Yeah. So since that won't be the case here, how do you think this will work out?
See, in our understanding, because of the way Snehal and I had our professional life, we realized very early on that a certificate or a degree is not the definition of your skills. Right. This and it. I mean, we have such outlook because that's the way we were. That's the experience we had in the industry. And we realized early on that having the skill to do something is more important than having the certificate to prove your ability to do something.
Right.
And skill set is everything. I mean, in today's day and age, it doesn't matter where you learned it from. It doesn't matter whether you learned something from a university or you learned something from, living in a village. The important thing is that you have the skill. So having the skill set is more important than having the certificate. And this is something that worked out for our professions also. I think for the first 3 years of my professional life, I was hunting for jobs, carrying certificates around with a CV and all that. But in those 3 years, I improved my skill set to a level that, this is exactly what happened at the time when I was in my 3rd year of professional work. The first time I was offered a job rather than I went hunting for a job.
Right.
So somebody somewhere knew about my skill set and talked about it to some studio, and they approached me that we have a requirement of this skill set. Would you like to come in for an interview for us to evaluate what level you are at?
Right.
And since that time till I stopped working, I have never ever looked for a job.
Okay, so
Because
I mean, I do get your point when you say that the skills are what matters. Like on the ground when you work, obviously there's no doubt about it. I mean, because we see today in India there's this huge problem of like millions of engineering graduates who have a degree and pass out but cannot solve the most basic problems because they don't have the skill. So skill, no doubt, is important. But then I would still argue, for example, let's say your daughter wants to say take up astronomy or something else on a more solid basis, and somehow, let's say at some point there is a requirement to get access to a university, for example, and then so one of the main things is they'll ask for papers and where did she study, where's the degree, and things like that. So how would you solve this problem?
So then again we have to address what is it that she needs that can only be provided by a university. Because I think any information, I mean, I'm just talking about today's day and age, and we are lucky that way. If this was 50 years back, probably this would be a very big question.
Right.
But in this day and age, there is nothing that you cannot find online. Any kind of informational knowledge that you need. I mean, people have made videos about everything.
Right.
I mean, YouTube, from what I understand, YouTube is a bigger search engine than Google itself.
Right.
So there is, I mean, I don't think I have come across any topic that cannot be researched online.
Right.
So I would beg to know if there is any skill set which requires us to actually go to a university to learn about it. Of course, if we need accreditation, we have to go to a university. If we need to have a certificate to be able to get a job, then if that's what you want for your children, then by all means, send your children to school. If you want them to line up for interviews and get a job and all that, and that's your motivation, then the right thing to do is to send them to school. And again, we are not against the schooling system. I mean, there are people who thrive in the schooling system. Right. I mean, I personally know people, and my wife has relatives who are always being poached by companies for their foreign projects, for the European or American projects. And two of our cousins are like that. They're constantly being poached. They're constantly being asked to join organizations which want to send them for research abroad. Right. And those guys are pure and pure product of the schooling system. They thrived in it. They become so good at what they do. And the only important thing is to become good at what you do.
Right.
The important thing is not how you become good at what you do. That is my argument. And if staying in a systematic, structured environment is what is required for the child to become good at what they do, then by all means,
right,
send them into that environment. And but in our case, we decided that it should be the decision of the child.
Right.
And we should not decide on their behalf. Of course, it is like a double-edged sword, because we did decide not to send her to school. It was not her opinion. But she's growing older and she's forming her own opinion now.
Is she? So obviously she's old enough to be aware of that her life is unique. And does she ever ask you to go to school or try that experience?
Yeah, I mean, she has, and we discuss about it, and then she has decided not to do it. Of course, I mean, as somebody who would not want her to go to school, I gave all my arguments about why she should not go to school.
Right.
And then she meets hundreds of people who give her arguments about why she should be in school. And then ultimately it will be her decision. Of course, I will not be in favor of it. And because the schooling system, I mean, over a period of 10 years, the life that we have lived, the schooling, the quote-unquote standard schooling system, the modern education system,
right,
is diagonally opposite to the way we live our lives.
Right.
So it would be a conflict of interest kind of situation where if a child goes to a school, she would be exposed to things that we would not want her to be exposed to.
Right. Have you faced any issues personally yourself? Have you been called like an irresponsible parent or something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. by everybody. Very few people, very few. I mean, we know. This is one of the things. We are Snehal and I are very social. We love meeting people. We love going out, hanging out with folks and whatnot. And everybody judges us based on their opinion about whether we are doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
Right.
And there are a few people who have been vocal about. Including my own parents, my own siblings, my own family members.
Right. So this is really amazing because one, you need this sort of cross this mental barrier that you have to be in this system to achieve all this. Of course, it's like you said, it's entirely possible to follow your heart and follow your goals without this structure. But then, so we touched upon this before, like your own background. So how did that help? So what is your background? So you said you're in the media and
yeah, so I'm Snehal and I basically we are more artistically inclined.
Okay.
I'll just put it at that. And again, the field that we pursued in, we realized very early on that you don't really need a certificate. You don't really need accreditation to be able to work on good projects.
Right.
What you need to do is you need to become good at what you do.
Right.
And that is required. That is the requirement of the creative industry today. They don't need people who know how to use a software. They need people who have the skill to create art.
Right.
Prime example is Disney. Right. When you go to get hired at Disney, they don't ask you which school you studied from. They don't ask you which softwares you know how to use. They ask you what is your skill set. So right. They will ask you for a portfolio of drawings. So it's just that you have to be good at the skill. And everything else that you need to learn to be able to work on their movies, they will teach you.
Right.
It's very easy to learn a software, but it takes years and years and hours of daily practice to become good at some skill.
Right.
And the software is not going to bring out your skill onto the screen. It is you who has to learn the tools to be able to bring out your skill.
Right.
The software is not going to do it for you.
Right.
The software is only providing you with the tools. It's just like using a pencil. A pencil is not going to make the drawing. You have to pick up the pencil and use it to make a drawing.
Right.
So a software is just a tool for expression, but the expression has to be there.
Right.
So it's just that. You can apply that to everything. Even an IT engineer, the equation is not going to solve itself. You have to put your mind to it and solve it and find a logical solution to the problem that you're facing.
Right.
And a logical combination of equations to provide a facility based on an app or a device or whatever that you want to provide to your customers to be able to do what they want to do. So it's
right.
Again, whether it is mechanical, whether it is engineering, whether it is flying a Boeing, everything is based on the skill set of the person who's operating the device.
Right. So do you think that I know that your situation and your approach is very unique to you, your situation, your family,
Absolutely.
and you don't recommend or not recommend at all to other people.
Yeah.
But my question still would be: do you think this can be a potential solution to solve this problem of, there is a lack of creative problem solving in our society, in our students, right? People mostly learn by rote, just to pass exams, and are not able to cope with problem solving real life on the floor, in a job or in their professions. Do you think that allowing kids to learn like this would make them more creative problem solvers? Do you see this as a potential solution to some learning issues in our society?
Well, again, yes and no, because see, whatever every person is going through is very unique to that person. So I cannot. I'm not qualified to provide a solution for society's problems.
Right.
I'm just doing my own thing. It goes back to the saying that be the change.
Right.
I'm not here to change society. I'm not doing something that would change the way society is formed or the way a community is built or the way things work. Okay. I don't know whether what I do on a family level, if implemented on a community level or a society level, would bring about any change or not. it is for the thinkers to look at case scenarios and the leaders to come up with means and ways of implementing that, because implementation is a very big challenge.
Right.
And I as a person cannot even fathom or how such a lifestyle would be implemented.
Right.
And I'm sure anything that is being implemented on a larger scale will have its own set of problems. What works for me in my group of 4 may not work even if you add one person to it. I don't know what will happen if you add 20 families to it.
Right.
So I really don't know how to answer that question, because nobody can. What has to be done, that if the leaders or the people who can actually bring change in society come together and they feel that this is a change that we as a society or a race or as human beings need to go on, then they have to make it happen. And
Right.
they have to address the challenges that will come with it, and then they have to find solutions to those challenges. And then maybe someday in the future, just like industrial revolution happened,
Right.
and that revolution happened because there was just something they were trying to achieve, and they went ahead and just like that happened. If these people in power with the ability to bring about change put their heads together and they feel that this is something we want to do on a larger scale, larger than a family scale, then only it can be implemented. And then me just saying that yes, my way is the right way, again goes back to the same thing, what we are doing in the world today, that everybody feels their way is the right way.
Right.
And it's not. I mean, it's not. It worked for me, and it may not work tomorrow also. I don't know.
But you're going ahead with this plan.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very comfortable and we are very clear about the way things as of today.
Right.
Tomorrow it might change.
Right.
Tomorrow we might feel that maybe we need to change tracks, and we might not. So it's very on the go. It's very what do you call it? Improvisational. We adapt to the problem that we are faced with.
Right. That's interesting. So lastly, before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you, I know we just touched upon this. You quit your job and your wife quit her job as well almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So with all this, how do you manage to sustain yourself?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Because I know that no schooling, of course, takes a huge chunk of expenses away, but then that's a different thing. But in a way, the kind of lifestyle that a family of 4 leads, with a lot of traveling and everything, so...
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, no schooling or not sending children to school actually creates a vacuum. And it's not that you can leave that vacuum alone. It has to be filled with something else. And whatever expenses we don't have towards traditional education, we have towards other things,
Right.
which bring about, which enrich our lives, in many other ways. So we basically have a very minimalistic lifestyle. But we do cater to our guilty pleasures, we very much do that. And the way we have managed to sustain ourselves is a term that some of your listeners might be familiar with and some might not. It's called gift economy.
Right.
And if I get into explaining it'll take me 1 more hour. So basically, we the way we are sustaining is that we usually document the activities that we undergo. And we document it and we put it on an online platform, and we have some followers who are very eager to watch whatever journey we are going on, and they as of now, this is where we are right now, that we are getting funding through that online platform from our viewers. So
Right.
they are basically happy about the way we are living our lives, and since we document everything that we do, they are interested in viewing our journey in a video format, and they facilitate us
Right.
so that we can keep on doing what we are doing, as long as I keep documenting
Right.
what we are doing and keep putting up on the online platform. So our funding mostly comes through our online platform.
Okay.
We don't earn any money.
That's how big is this? Is there like a community in India right now? A bunch of people who do this no schooling for their kids, or do you know? Are you aware of other people?
It's growing as far as we understand. I won't be able to give you exact specifications, but the last city we were living in before we started living out of cities, there were around 3,000 families who were not sending their children to school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And is there like an online community or support that you have?
Yeah. So there are these Google groups which get formed now. Nowadays, WhatsApp groups are very popular for different cities, different towns, even different states, where homeschoolers or unschoolers have come together.
Right.
And there are Facebook pages, there are Google groups, there are even physical spaces
Right.
where people are building eco villages, and where they want to get away from the city life and the system and whatnot, and try to find a way. But then it's at its infancy, and through our travels we have seen that there are many challenges that
Right.
they are facing, that they have to overcome
Right.
to be able to successfully. They might be able to put together a successful commercial
Right.
setup, but
Right.
to create a successful societal setup where every aspect of the society is given equal footing.
Right.
Unlike there being a hierarchy. Wherever we have gone, if we find that there is a hierarchy where there are some things which are above the others, we were not able to
Crack that.
become a part.
Right.
Yeah, we are not able to become a part.
Right.
Healthy contributing aspect of that society,
Right.
or bunch of people who are coming together. Because mostly it's, from what we have seen at this moment, it's mostly towards becoming commercially successful and self-sustaining based on, again, money.
Right.
And if it's that, so it is another version of what's happening in the mainstream. So people are still not ready to go away from the idea of running a life without worrying about earning money.
Right.
Yeah, which is what we aspire to do.
That's interesting.
But of
So
course,
it looks
money-
like
money is
there also needs to be a simultaneous. I think there will be like a simultaneous shift in the consciousness of people at large, in the way they live and everything.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have to let go of the things that there's this thing about what do you need to sustain and what do you want.
Right.
As that gap grows, the lifestyle becomes not sustainable.
Yeah.
But as you close that gap, but you have to find a healthy balance, because either if you just live on your wants, it's unhealthy. If you just live on your needs, it leads to depravity.
Right.
So we have to find a healthy ground, and by all means we are not there. I mean, it's a constant struggle on a daily basis for us also.
Right.
It's not that we are way ahead of everybody else. We are not. We've got nothing figured out. I can only talk from my experience for the past 10 years
Right.
of being a parent, and how I'm balancing the act of being a parent and also a contributing member of the society that I'm part of.
Right.
Because we live on those two grounds. We have a personal life and we have a social life. And there are many aspects that have to be achieved on both levels, which
Right.
is very, very tough. I mean, I can speak for my wife and I.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Abhijit, thank you so much for having a chat with us and sharing with us your experiences on no schooling. I'm going to call it no schooling or unschooling, or rather than homeschooling, because I think that means something else in it. Like there is a different meaning to homeschooling, but I guess unschooling is a better word.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, no word is. I mean, word is not the thing.
Right.
So you cannot actually define it, but for people's understanding, you
Yes.
may call it unschooling.
Right.
Because there are times that we follow structure also.
Right.
So it's a matter of convenience. It's a matter of how we are able to solve a problem that we are faced with. If it requires us to have a structure, then we do follow structure.
Right.
And that's it. I mean, that's pretty much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Abhijit, for taking the time out. It was a great
Such a
pleasure
pleasure.
chatting with you, and I'm sure
Oh,
a lot of our listeners will at least consider going that route, maybe partially, maybe. Let's see.
That'll be awesome. Thank you for having me on your podcast. And
Thank you so much.
cheers.
Yeah, bye. Take care.